Welcome to episode 266 of the Shared Security Show. And joining me this week is co-host Kevin Johnson, who is apparently only here for comic relief, and his Canadian sidekick, co-host Scott Wright.
I love it that Scott's my sidekick, not your sidekick.
Not mine. He's yours.
Yeah.
So me.
So I'm only here for comic relief. Okay, I'm cool with that.
Well, that's what you
I'm
said.
a sidekick to the comic relief. What does that make me?
Yeah, well,
I wasn't going to say it. Did you see my absolutely fascinating, fun, best joke ever the other night when I was at the Italian restaurant? I was at an Italian restaurant and I was eating chicken piccata. Not that that's important, but there's capers on chicken piccata, and one of the capers fell off my plate, and I said out loud, "Oh no, it's an escaper." And
what?
I giggled for 5 minutes. I will admit, I'm sitting at the table. My whole family's with me, my daughters, my wife, and I am giggling like a madman. And Denise says, "What is wrong with you?" And I said, "You married me."
Yes,
you
clearly.
knew I was like this before you said I do. And an escaper. That's
okay. That's new.
Off your plate.
That sounds new. Okay. Yeah. All right. But I did bring the comic relief thing up because that is what you said that you do on this podcast when you were on the Secure Dad podcast with all of us.
A
couple of weeks ago.
I said
so,
it. Oh,
yeah.
man.
So
check out the Secure Dad podcast first of all.
Yeah.
Yes.
That was fun.
It was a fun episode.
It was good.
One, I always like talking to you two, and Andy. Right,
Andy's great, isn't he?
Okay, yeah. When I started to say it, I'm like, wait, that's not right. He seemed like a good guy.
He is a good guy. Yeah,
it was a fun conversation.
Yep. Yeah. I've known Andy for a long time. We've been on each other's podcasts, and I always recommend his show to others as well. So I really like how he brings the parent, into the conversation about how to, live a better life and more secure life and all that. So it's good stuff.
Yeah.
But
I guess I should start listening to his podcast.
Yeah, you probably should. Yeah.
So that brings up a question that probably as a person who is a co-host and who has a sidekick of a podcast, I probably shouldn't have to ask this question. But what do you guys recommend to listen to podcasts on? Because I've tried, I have an Android phone. So I everybody's like, wherever you get your Apple podcast. I'm like, okay, I don't have Apple Podcasts. I have an Android phone. I've tried Spotify. It randomly forgets which episodes I've listened to. It randomly points me at different things. That sucks. I've tried various other tools. I don't get to listen to very many podcasts because I get frustrated. What do you recommend?
I will give you my... Go ahead. You first, Scott.
Mine probably doesn't count because I'm just a sidekick. But I use an. I'm an iPhone guy. I use the podcast app on iPhone. It works fine.
I'm not switching back.
So I will tell you, I use an app that you can use on Android and iOS, and it's called Overcast.
Okay. As in cloudy weather,
cloudy day.
Yeah. At least that's what I think it's called. Let me look real quick, but. Overcast.
Overcast.fm.
Yeah. I love it. I've been using it for years. Yeah, my favorite podcast app. Yeah,
I appreciate it. This says for Apple iPhone.
It should be for Android too.
I'll look at it afterwards. I don't need to listen. I don't need to look at it while we're recording. It's so frustrating to me that I can't find one that stays consistent. Yeah. Right, like the ability to just say play it at a 1.5 speed or whatever, and what have you. So, okay, go on. I'm sorry. We have other topics to talk about.
Oh yeah, we have
other than Kevin's software choices.
But that's always fun to talk about occasionally, right? So we'll steer this back to some fun stories this week, and first one is Twitter is phasing out its free text message based, and I want to clarify, text message based two-factor authentication, and putting that behind a paywall, which has a lot of people shaking their heads. Why?
Makes no sense.
I have my own opinion. I believe it is a money play because text message SMS costs money. right? They probably use a third-party service, which costs
money to the company who is
Correct.
offering it, not the person
Yes.
receiving it. Just to be clear for people who don't know.
Yes. And if you're not familiar with this story, so Twitter is going to be, only allowing SMS-based two-factor authentication for Twitter Blue subscribers, and still offering the more secure method of two-factor authentication, which is app-based two-factor authentication for non-paid Twitter users.
Sounds like a great value proposition. I'm going to pay more and have a less secure two-factor authentication experience.
Well, here's the other kicker is that they will be migrating users off of two-factor authentication. So if you have SMS enabled, you need to go in and set up app-based, or you're not going to have any two-factor authentication.
Right. March, right?
Yes.
Like middle of March. Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you guys think of this?
I have a problem because maybe it's just in Canada, but I have never been able to find the two-factor authentication app setting in Twitter. I've tried many times. I'm going, it doesn't look like they have two-factor authentication.
Maybe you're using the Canadian version of Twitter.
I guess it is. Yeah. I shouldn't even be using the Twitter app anyway.
Twitter A?
Twitter A.
So I want to be very clear. I'm in no way saying, well, Twitter's the best option here. I think it's absolutely hilarious to me how many people spouted outrage.
Oh my gosh.
At Twitter getting rid of two-factor authentication. It's like, no, that's not what they're doing. I whether we can agree or disagree with what they're doing, let's at least represent it correctly, right? Like, they're removing SMS. I know, Tom, you said that. You said it correctly. And oh, by the way, you are not one of the people I saw spouting outrage over the wrong thing. So for me, from a business perspective, let's ignore opinions of people. Maybe people have Cologne last names. Right, Musk. And I think that was so good. Comic book.
There it is.
So I understand from a business perspective. Hey, this feature is less something we want to support because it costs money. It's not as secure as other options and other things like that. So let's move it to a paid subscription. That makes sense. That I look at that decision and go, okay, I get that. I don't like it. And I don't like it because I've said this many times. I've said this on this show many times. I've said it on stage many times, that InfoSec seems to ignore the idea that many of the people who use SMS two-factor don't have another option.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Well, if I remember the numbers, like 22%, of North American people who have cell phones do not have a smartphone.
Yeah.
Right. So they possess a cell phone. This is not, I don't have a cell phone at all. They've got a cell phone. It's not a smartphone. Yeah. So the auth options aren't available to them. It's just not available to them. The YubiKey option is not available to them. Well, that's not true. That's not true. The YubiKey option is available to them because they're using Twitter on their computer. But we have large numbers of people that access the internet, access things like Twitter solely from public use computers. And SMS is the option they have to do this. And what we're saying is to those people, and maybe that's okay. Maybe it's good because we don't want anybody on Twitter because we hate Elon Musk. So moving at least the poor people off of Twitter is a good way. That doesn't sound elitist at all. But like we seem to overlook that those who probably need this level of security the most are hit the worst.
Yeah.
Right.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
Now I will also point out, I read somewhere that like less than 5% of Twitter's users even have two-factor authentication.
That's also
turned
correct.
On. Right. Yeah. Like, and it's probably because like Scott, they can't find the option.
I've got two factors, just SMS. That's all.
I misunderstood what you meant. Yeah. I'm sorry. But
it was the app. I can't get the app.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. And I don't remember where I turned it on. I know, like it's one of those things where I know I turned it on. I just don't know where. But I think that this was a lot of outrage over something not really important. And to me, this is one of the things I say quite often about lots of things, is whether you agree or disagree with something, at least present what you agree or disagree with correctly.
Yeah.
Like when we
That's
as
so important.
security experts come out and go, Twitter is not letting us do two-factor. And our argument is so easily undermined by, well, the actual thing they're doing. Everything else we say is discounted, right? Like, so when we say Twitter is bad for security because they're removing two-factor entirely, anything we say after that phrase is immediately disregarded, correctly so in many cases, because we weren't right on that. So to me, I don't like that Twitter's doing it. I don't like that Twitter's doing it for different reasons than the outrage. My issue is we are telling the people who can't afford, right? But from a business perspective, it makes sense.
Yeah, I think too the other argument I saw was like, well, SMS is less secure than app-based two-factor authentication. So this is actually a good thing, right? It's going to force people to use the app, and
no, it's going to basically they're turning off two-factor if you don't set it up. Yeah,
right. So, if you don't set it up,
my guess is there's going to be a bunch of incidents, of stolen accounts.
I don't know about a bunch, and the only reason I say I don't know about a bunch is because so few people on Twitter use two-factor anyways.
That's true. Yeah.
We're going to see a negligible increase in the number of people's Twitter accounts being breached. I think what we will see a huge increase in is the number of people whose Twitter accounts are breached that thought they were protected because they had two-factor.
Or it could also affect people who are higher profile but haven't bought the Twitter Blue, and therefore a bigger target to start with. And attackers might say, well, they probably did have two-factor at one point, but probably don't now.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. Like, hey, you're a high-profile person. You're not tick boxed, whatever, right?
So if I don't set up my two-factor authentication app, I'm going to default back to regular, and somebody's going to target me.
That's actually a really good idea that I hadn't thought about, is that this makes somebody a target by not having the checkbox.
I think so.
Like, that's interesting, Scott. I hadn't thought about it that way.
Yeah.
That should be our Aware Much segment.
Oh, and we will get to that
because we have a better Aware Much segment.
We do. The last thing I do want to say about this, though, is that, and the argument that, like, oh, we need to get rid of SMS two-factor because you're going to get hacked and because there's vulnerabilities in it. Like, for high-profile people, maybe that's the case, depending on your risk profile and who you are and your threat model and all that stuff. But for the normal user, SMS two-factor is better than nothing.
Yeah.
And as a security professional, I am always going to recommend that you use SMS or any two-factor authentication because it will still protect you no matter what.
Yeah. 100%. I'd rather you have something than nothing.
Use something. Exactly. Yeah. All right. Well, with that, let's jump into a segment we haven't had in a few weeks, which is Aware Much?
I don't know why Tom. That makes me giggle.
We don't know either.
Because I'm I'm a comic sidekick.
Yes. Yes, Tom, it's absolutely time to ask that question. Aware Much? So how much do you think it would cost if I was to actually be able to buy data about your mental health, Tom?
$1 billion.
Turns out that for as little as 5.5 cents US,
that's really
not Canadian,
disappointing.
US,
not Canadian.
For one record, I can buy your data and learn about your bipolar disorder, anxiety, or depression.
So I don't know about Tom, but for me, what do you want to know?
I know Kevin's an open book.
Kevin will give it to you for free.
Yeah.
Send me the 37 cents. It's a deal.
But we learned that researchers at Duke University set out to buy data on people's mental health from 37 different data brokers, which are the guys that collect data from various places and sell it. And 11 of those brokers agreed to sell information that identified people through various attributes and sometimes demographics like race, age, credit score, location. And they didn't really hide the fact that they could provide names and addresses for these things, which is kind of scary too. But sadly, not much has really been done. We know on the legislative side, right, that's going to be able to prevent this at all. So A lot of people, though, think that HIPAA, the regulations around health information, will protect a lot of information, but it actually only deals with covered entities like hospitals or healthcare organizations. So my question to you guys is, where do these data brokers get that data?
Well, I mean, they listen to our podcast, and so that's how they got my data. No, as a matter of fact, the HIPAA thing is a good question. Is a good point. A lot of people are like, oh, HIPAA covers that, and it's like, yeah, HIPAA does if the data came from a covered entity. I'll tell you one of the places you can get that type of data, and that is from purchasing. Right?
Yeah.
If you're buying, if you go out to Pfizer's website, and I'm making that one up, right? No, I'm not. Pfizer actually has a website, and you research drugs for bipolar disorder or anxiety or whatever, that's not HIPAA covered because that's just marketing materials, right?
Yep.
And the fact that you researched anxiety medicine does not mean you have anxiety, but it does mean you probably do, right? Or somebody who does. So a lot of the data comes from that. Another place that a lot of data comes from, and this is something that we're seeing more and more of, and it's a messed up one, and that is many HIPAA covered entities are actually putting analytics trackers and things like that into sections of their apps that are authenticated.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I think we talked about that one time.
We did.
Yes, we did. Many times accidentally, right? They're deploying it as part of the look and feel of the app. And then, right, or the marketing person doesn't understand, or in some cases, I've worked. Sorry, I'm buffering. My internet connection is down. Oh no. I've worked with companies where they have rolled out software to help support their end users, but the software that's helping support end users, like the hotspot and stuff like that, that's just an arm of an analytics company.
Yeah.
That is getting that data. So the data comes from lots of different sources that either accidentally or on purpose reveal medical data that isn't HIPAA covered because it's not a HIPAA covered entity. That's where a lot of it comes from. Of course, there's also data breaches and stuff like that people get access to. But my understanding from working with data brokers and my understanding from working with HIPAA covered entities is that most of the data comes from non-HIPAA covered sources that can tie back. And the answer of, well, they're not doing a lot of effort to hide names and addresses and stuff like that. We've seen for years, what was it in 1735, AOL released anonymized search data, and within minutes people were finding that priest that was looking for escorts or and that's a real example. That's not me just making fun of priests.
My guess is one of the biggest sources would be a place like Facebook, right? Social media sites as well.
Yeah. Well, how many times do you look at a site and it says like us on Facebook or use your Facebook account to authenticate or
The one thing I want to add to that's, I think I want to make people aware of is there's a surge of these mental health apps that are out there, like Talkspace and all of these therapist type apps, right? Where you can talk in real time to a therapist and all that instead of going to an office, right?
Yep.
And I want to encourage everyone to read those terms of service when you sign up for those apps, because I would bet you that a lot of those apps have some type of disclaimer that they can use some of your information, maybe conditions like bipolar or other things that don't necessarily name you, but they name the condition that you're being treated for, and then that information goes over to one of these data brokers. So
it'd be interesting to hear
kind of my intuition.
If people are bombarded with ads more after they've joined one of those apps, would be interesting to know.
Yeah. And I don't want to be political. I mean, that's far be it from Kevin to be political.
Not on this show, yeah.
But we're having a very similar problem here in Florida, where Governor DeSantis has a, for lack of a better term, a crusade against trans rights or trans people. And I'm fighting very hard not to use the terms I want to use about him because I'm trying to keep the explicit tag off of this episode.
Thank you very much.
If anybody is not clear, I hate what is happening in Florida right now. But he is leveraging the state schools, and he has gone to the state schools and said, hey, you're funded by Florida. You've got our Department of Education, and I want you, DeSantis wants them to release to him, to his administration, data about trans students who are seeking treatment and help and advisory. And a lot of people, I actually, a person I'm connected to on Facebook was like, oh, this violates HIPAA. We have to fight it. We have to do all this kind of stuff. And I said to him, it doesn't. Nope. And I'm not correcting you as in, no, your outrage is unreasonable. It's like, no, we have to fight the right thing.
Yeah.
This is absolutely, again, I'm not agreeing that it should be, but this is absolutely something that's allowed because they are providing it without names, without identifying, and I hope you heard the quotes in italics, identifying marks. So it's like a student has gotten treatment for this thing related to, transition. And I feel bigoted even saying it right now because of this. I'm trying very hard not to be offensive because I hate what's happening so much. But that data is available and is searchable. And worse, Florida is sunshine state law, right? Like if the government is involved in it, it has to be public to level. There are anonymizing things and stuff like that. And so a lot of this type of data is coming from sources like that the student who went to the healthcare center or whatever you call it, I didn't go to college, so I don't know. But right when they went to the medical advisor, I don't know, and said, "Hey, I feel like I want to transition. I feel like I'm I'm in the wrong body. I'm this, whatever." They went there believing that was a completely private and protected thing.
Yeah,
and it's not. And that to me is the biggest thing I hope that Aware Much is pushing is
well,
be so aware, no pun intended, at whether or not what you're doing is a protected thing or is an encrypted or is a safe. That's the big thing, the chilling effects of this type of data brokerage stuff, even ignoring the jerk of a governor. I think that was not explicit.
Nope.
Right.
Clear.
Understanding the lack of control these data brokers give you is so critical.
Yep. Thanks for that, Kevin. This segment of Aware Much has been brought to you by ClickArmor, where we make security awareness engaging, fun, and effective. And if you're facing increasing pressure to improve awareness or compliance, you should try our highly interactive, gamified security awareness training. So visit clickarmor.ca for more information. And while you're at it, check out our security awareness forum. It's a bi-weekly panel discussion with live Q&A. We get lots of great discussion going on things like operations security, working from home, awareness training content types, employee assessments, all kinds of topics. We do them every 2 weeks, and last time we had 70 people registered, which is awesome.
That's nice.
So yeah, it's really fun and great value for people. So join us at clickarmor.ca/CSAF, and that's it for Aware Much.
Can I ask you a question, Scott? Before we go on to the next section, you just posted something somewhere. I think it was LinkedIn.
Okay.
When you said gamified, it triggered the thing to me. I think it was LinkedIn. You posted an absolutely awesome article where you explained in detail what
and you read it?
Mean.
That's cool.
Yeah, of course I read it. You posted this really, really good article about what you mean by gamify. And you pointed out how about people using it different ways and everything else like that.
Yeah.
And Tom, if you can put that in the show notes,
we will.
Was excellent.
Yeah.
And not trying to pimp ClickArmor.
Send me the link, Scott.
Yeah, right. we could actually make it a topic for next week, maybe.
Perfect.
I read it and I thought, man, that's because you're absolutely right. That term is thrown around so
it's hard to really understand what people mean when they say gamified.
Yeah, so it was excellent.
I like it.
Excellent.
Thanks very much. I appreciate it. Love to chat more about it.
Well, I know we've already mentioned like paywalls and pay to play, all that stuff. So Meta, formerly Facebook, has launched a new program called Meta Verified, which aims to unify verification across all of their platforms. So for the low price of $12 per month, or $15 on mobile, which is really interesting. So if you're on the web, it's $12. If you use it on the app, it's $15. Well, which is
that's
really
probably
strange.
That's probably to cover the extra money that Apple or Google takes for mobile app. Yeah. Nice.
So you can verify who you say you are by uploading your government ID, which this sounds like a horrible idea. Like, I'm giving all this information to Facebook already. Now I'm going to give them my government ID.
Yeah.
Awesome. And then you will get a blue badge, not a check mark, but a blue badge. And you will get active monitoring against identity fraud and immediate customer support.
What are they using?
Never mind. We won't go there.
I was going to make a rude comment. I'm not going there.
So this obviously copies off of Twitter Blue, which is $8 a month. So I don't know. What do you guys think of this? This is.
I don't care.
I don't care either, but I mean, I care enough to bring it up on the podcast.
Yes, I don't mean it that way. I again, this is another one of those things where I've seen a lot of people. Oh my God, they're offering it for $12. That's ridiculous. That's way too high price. And I'm like, oh, okay.
15.
I don't know. Do you think it's a high price? Then don't buy it, right? Like I personally think that there are reasonable use cases for it. I'm not going to get verified on Meta.
No, I'm not either.
Right? You want to?
I deleted all my Meta accounts.
So,
yeah.
I haven't, because I still use my Quest. I still have Supernatural for the exercise. I'm still fat. But I'm working on it. I really am. But if you're, I hate the term influencer, but bluntly, if you're an influencer, if you're an organization that's using this to promote your company, your activities, whatever, it kind of makes sense to pay the money, maybe, for you. Mm-hmm. The thing that gets me is, I don't think it'll work. And here's why I don't think it'll work. I have a Facebook account. I've got connections on Facebook. I always hate the term friends on Facebook. I have friends who are connected to me on Facebook. But I also have other people who are connected to me on Facebook that I'm not sure they rate as friends, but they're connections. I bet you that if I paid that money and got the blue check mark, and then tomorrow you built a Kevin Johnson Facebook page with my profile picture and my stuff, that 99% of the people I'm connected to will not notice the difference.
Yep.
Right? Like, I don't think, like, here's the thing. If I created a Kevin Johnson Facebook page and got it validated and paid the money, if every other Facebook page that said they were Kevin Johnson and tried to use my picture, Facebook kicked out, then as a business, that might be worthwhile. But considering the fact that they're not going to, what is that comedian's name? I see him on TikTok all the time, but he goes around and he responds to people as the company, right? Like, somebody says, "Oh, you're evil Chick-fil-A because you close on Sundays and I wanted a chicken sandwich," or "You're evil Wendy's because you've got a mascot that has pigtails," or whatever, right? And then this guy creates a Wendy's Facebook page and he responds to the person and he records it and then he does a skit on stage about it. Like, what was the dumb thing this person did? And it's hilarious. The guy is, every time I see his video, I'm like, oh, I got to watch this. If Facebook or Meta's checkbox doesn't prevent him from doing that, and I don't mean enables a user to know that it was really Wendy's, not this guy. I mean actually preventing him from doing that, and it's not worth $12. It's not doing what it claims to do.
Interesting take. Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. Well, we shall all see, won't we?
We will see
if it's a success or not. But I won't be using it because I deleted all of my Meta accounts a long time ago, and I'm happier because of it.
I stopped using Facebook for a long time, and then family and things going on dragged me back into it. And I found myself falling back into the checking Facebook and stuff, and I recognize where it spends too much time affecting the way I'm thinking about things.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
So with that, I think that's all we have for today, gentlemen.
It was a long episode.
It was. I like it,
Sorry.
though. This was a lot of good discussion.
At least we all didn't have to run off somewhere.
That's right. We didn't have to run off to another meeting or something crazy, right?
This is my last meeting of the day.
I know,
don't
and
know what
it's
to
a-
do
yeah.
with the next hour and
You can
25
enjoy your
minutes of
weekend,
my life.
Kevin.
Wow.
Yes, I know. So, well, thank you both as always, and thanks to all of our listeners and subscribers on YouTube. We are still inching up towards 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. So
Nice.
hit that like and subscribe button.
Yeah.
Much
Honored to be your
appreciated.
faithful sidekick, Kevin.
Next week I'm yours. How's that?
We'll do a flip
We'll
flop next week.
alternate
Yes.
We can alternate.
sidekickness.
Oh, I like that.
When does Tom
like
get
that.
to be a sidekick?
No.
I don't know.
Tom's in charge. This is Tom's
You
show.
guys, one of you can have the host role for a little bit. I'm fine with that.
No. This is your show, and you let us join.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks everyone, and we will talk to you again next week. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, hit that like and subscribe button. To catch all the latest from the show, visit our website, sharedsecurity.net. Follow us on Twitter at SharedSec, and join our Reddit community on the Shared Security Show subreddit.